Welcome to this explainer. Okay, so if you're planning an international move, maybe a study abroad program, or you're expanding your business overseas, you already know exactly how high the stakes are. I mean, you spend months, maybe even years navigating visas, legal fees, and literally thousands of dollars in expenses. But there's this tiny, often overlooked administrative detail that can literally make or break your entire international timeline. $2. Yep, just $2. An international adoption, a massive global corporate merger, or a master's degree program in Europe can all completely hinge on a final legal linchpin that's holding all your paperwork together. And in the state of Tennessee, securing that legal recognition costs exactly $2. But here's the catch. Getting that $2 stamp requires navigating a very specific maze of bureaucracy. One misstep and your documents get rejected, which delays your plans by weeks. So today, we're going to make absolutely sure that doesn't happen to you. Okay, let's dive right into our roadmap for today. We'll be looking at demystifying the Apostille, document preparation requirements, the application process, real-world success stories, FAQs and pro tips, and finally, a quick conclusion and legal disclaimer. Starting right off with Section 1, demystifying the Apostille. Now you might be wondering, what actually is this thing? Well, an apostille is essentially an international stamp of authenticity. Way back in 1961, the Hague Convention established a treaty to stop the endless, frustrating loop of legalizing foreign public documents. So instead of having to bounce around to multiple embassies, member countries agreed on this one standardized certificate. When you get a document apostilled in Tennessee, the Department of State's Business Services Division is officially certifying the authenticity of the signature, the specific seal, and the position of the official who signed your document. It essentially proves to over 120 participating countries that your paperwork is completely legitimate. Now, what's really interesting here is how your destination country's geopolitical alignment completely alters your paperwork pathway. It's like a fork in the road. If your destination country is part of the Hague Convention, you're on the Apostille track. It's a single state-level stamp from Tennessee and you're golden. You're done. But if you're heading to a non-Hague nation, you enter what's called the Authentication track. Tennessee will authenticate the document, sure, but then you actually have to send it off to the U.S. Department of State in Washington, D.C. for a second federal authentication, and then finally to the destination country's embassy. So knowing your destination status is absolutely step one. Moving along to Section 2, Document Preparation Requirements. Getting the document prepared properly is where the vast majority of people make critical, super time-consuming errors. For private documents, we're talking academic transcripts, powers of attorney, affidavits. Tennessee requires a very strict three-tiered chain of custody. First up, you have to take the document to a commissioned Tennessee notary public at large to get it notarized. But you aren't done yet. Second, because Tennessee doesn't maintain a centralized database of all those local notary signatures, you have to take that newly notarized document to the county clerk in the specific county where that notary was commissioned. The county clerk, say the Shelby County clerk, for a $5 fee verifies the notary is legit and attaches a certification. Only then, at step 3, is your document actually ready for the Secretary of State. But hey, here's some good news. Not every document needs that whole 3-step dance. Certain documents are completely exempt from local notarization and county certification. State-issued vital records, like your birth, death, and marriage certificates, as well as corporate filings, like articles of incorporation, get to bypass the notary entirely. Because they're issued directly by the state, they get to go straight to the Secretary of State's office for the apostille. However, please pay super close attention to this next part. Consider this a giant warning label. If you are submitting a vital record like a birth certificate, it absolutely must be a certified copy issued directly by the Tennessee Department of Health's Office of Vital Records, and it has to bear the signature of the state registrar. If you try to send in a certificate issued by a local county health clinic or one that just has a printed digital signature from some local official, the state will instantly reject it. No questions asked. It has to come from the state level. Let's move to Section 3 and see how this all builds. The application process. Okay, so every single document you submit to the state must be accompanied by Form SS-454. That's the official apostille or authentication request form. You've got to fill this out perfectly. It's going to ask for your contact info, the number of documents, and your specific destination country. And here is a literal make or break detail. The form must be completed in ink or typed out. If you fill it out in pencil, it is automatically rejected. Seriously, do not let a number 2 pencil ruin your international travel plans. So, you've got two logistical options for submission at the Snodgrass Tower in Nashville. If you mail it in, it goes up to the 6th floor. It generally takes about 3 to 5 business days to process, plus whatever your shipping time is. And get this, you can only pay by check or money order. Absolutely no credit cards. Now, if you need it faster, you can do a walk-in on the 3rd floor. For that, you can pay with cash, check, or money order. But be warned, they enforce a strict 2 p.m. Central Time cutoff. If you show up at that counter at 2:01 p.m., no way. You are not getting same-day service, and your documents will be held overnight until the next day. All right, Section 4, Real-World Success Stories. Let's ground all these bureaucratic rules in reality with a quick, practical use case. Imagine a student heading to Spain. Spain is a Hague Convention country, so they just need the Apostille. Perfect. Their university transcript is a private educational record, so their journey looks exactly like this. First, the school registrar certifies and signs the transcript. Second, a Tennessee notary notarizes that registrar's signature. Third, the student takes it to the county clerk to certify the notary. And finally, they submit it with Form SS4504 and a $2 check to the state. Done and dusted. And this brilliantly illustrates the contrast with our next example. Imagine a family adopting internationally who needs their Tennessee birth certificates apostilled. Their journey is so much shorter. Because a birth certificate is a state-issued vital record, they just make sure it's a certified copy signed by the state registrar. They skip the notary entirely, they skip the county clerk, and they send it straight to Nashville with their Form SS4504 and their $2 fee. Much simpler, right? Provided you have the correct version of the certificate.
Okay, Section 5, FAQs and Pro Tips.
Let's cover some of the most common roadblocks, because this right here is a massive friction point. Tennessee can only authenticate signatures on documents that were executed within the borders of Tennessee. So if you have an out-of-state birth certificate, it absolutely has to go back to that specific state. And if you have a federal document, like an FBI background check, Tennessee can't touch it. Federal documents have to go directly to the U.S. Department of State in Virginia, which requires Form DS-4194 and a $20 fee. Always, always know your jurisdiction. Let me give you a few rapid-fire insider pro tips to ensure success here. First, if your document is in a foreign language, it must have a certified English translation with a notarized affidavit attached to it. Second, if you're submitting multiple documents, do yourself a favor and put them on separate request forms. That way, if one happens to have an error, they don't reject the whole batch. And third, actually, this is a huge one. If you are including a prepaid FedEx or UPS return label, you must list your own name and address as both the sender and the recipient. If you put the Tennessee Secretary of State as the sender, it causes billing conflicts in their system, and they will just default to sending your crucial documents back via slow, regular mail. Finally, Section 6, Conclusion and Legal Disclaimer. As always, I have to provide a quick disclaimer here. Bureaucratic processes, fees, and office hours can and do change. While this explainer is built on the absolute most current data available, you should always verify the current rules directly with the Tennessee Secretary of State's office, or just seek professional, legal, and expediting assistance if you find yourself on a super tight deadline. So the crucial point is really this. Navigating the Tennessee apostille process isn't about luck. It's simply about following the right sequence. Just know your document type. Respect that chain of custody. Use ink instead of pencil, and definitely watch the clock if you're walking into the Snodgrass Tower. You are now perfectly equipped to tackle this bureaucratic hurdle head-on. With your paperwork fully authenticated and legally recognized worldwide, the only question left for you is, what global doors will you open today? Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer, and safe travels on your international journey.